Good evening and welcome in to episode number 2 of This Week in High School Sports. Trevor Mader and Kramer Sansone with you for the next hour as we get you ready and recap all the action in the high school sports world in Northwest Missouri and a little bit of Southwest Iowa as well. And we'll look ahead to this week, including a big matchup tonight that will take place at Bearcat Stadium between Chillicothe and the Maryville Spoofhounds. You can hear that on X106. Wyatt Bell and Colton Emsweiler will be on the call for that one. As I mentioned, I'm joined by Kramer Sansone. Kramer, how are we doing? A lot of high school sports action here this past week with football, volleyball, a little bit of golf as well, I believe. And we're kind of into the thick of fall sports now.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for high school sports because it seems like you get out early to go do something, or you got to go under the lights and play some football, which is always exciting in the high school sport realm.
Yeah, quick look at some of the area volleyball action from this past week. Good week for Maryville volleyball on Monday. They ended up falling to Benton in 2 sets, losing 25-23 in both of them. Morgan Steckline had 8 kills. Serena Sundell added 4, and Kelsey Scott added 3. Macy Lowe had 7 digs and 5 assists. Then they bounced back Tuesday night. They traveled across state lines to Corning, Iowa, and they took on Southwest Valley. They defeated a really solid Timberwolf squad in 5 sets. The Spoofhounds won the first set. Southwest Valley rallied back and took sets 2 and 3. So Maryville found themselves in a 2-1 deficit. They're able to take the 4th and 5th sets by the decisive set they won by a score of 15-11. Really thrilling match there. And some notable stats for the Spoofhounds. Serena Sundell's stat line of 12 kills, 12 digs, and 2 aces. Both of those aces came in that 5th and final set. Kelsey Scott added 5 kills, 4 blocks, and 2 aces. Josie Pitts, 18 assists and 2 aces. Macy Lowe with 6 digs, 5 assists, and 2 blocks in the win. The Spoofhounds are now 4-1 on the season. By the time you hear this, they will have played against LeBlanc. The show a couple days pre-recorded, but that game is slated for Thursday evening. So not a bad week for Spoofhound volleyball. They go 1-1, but they compete really well with Benton, and then they're able to travel across the state lines, and they take on a really, really solid Southwest Valley team, and they get the win. Got to think they're pretty happy with the way their week has gone so far.
Oh, yeah, it can only, I guess, get any better. Like, to see how they play.
Yeah, the only thing that could have got better is if they would have been able to eke out that close one against Benton.
That's true. That's true.
That's the only way it would have got better.
Still, I mean, it's still a great game to watch in volleyball. Seriously, if it's that close, I mean, you're on your toes the entire time. Even the fans, even the players out there are more invested into that.
Some other area volleyball scores from Tuesday night in particular. Bedford defeated Lennox in 5 sets thanks to a 15-13 victory in the 5th set. That was in Iowa. East Atchison got the win over South Holt in 2 sets. Rockport defeated Mountain City in 2 sets. And West Nottoway defeated Union Star in 2 sets. Let's take a look at some of the football action from last week. We'll begin with the 275 conference, where there were 5 different games in that conference. And Kramer, we kind of saw some things in week 1, and now after 2 weeks, you get to know a little bit more about these teams.
Yeah, it's I feel like right now, I feel like I know a lot more, including the 8-man idea of playing football, because I'm more traditional with the 11-man on there.
Are you from Canada?
I'm from Canada, eh? No, but I was at the East Atchison game, and it was like, from my perspective on it, it went fast. Like, that's a good thing about 8-man football games. They go fast. It's fast-paced, high scoring. It's a lot of scoring, and I truly like what this conference is. I mean, it goes one way every single week, it seems like, but then again, it's all back and forth, it seems like.
Quick look at the scores from the 275, as Kramer alluded to. East Atchison picks up a 58-0 victory over Northwest Nottoway. They were led by Bryson Bywater, who had 215 yards rushing and 4 scores on just 9 carries. We will hear from East Atchison head coach Aaron Behrens here in a little bit. Rockport defeated Platte Valley 68-22. They had a big night from Gavin Abbott, who had over 200 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. Mountain City, the team many people think is the favorite to win the 275, they went out and took it to a pretty good Stewartsville team by a score of 66-0. They held Stewartsville to just 4 yards rushing. It was 20-0 after the first quarter, and then Mountain City poured it on in the second quarter with 46 total points to bring the final score to 66-0. Southwest Livingston, they defeated South Holt Nottoway Holt 68-22, and DeKalb defeated Chilhowie 34-6. quick look at your standings through 2 games in the 275 conference. Some teams have played 2 conference games. A couple of teams have only played 1 conference game. Rockport, Mound City, and Southwest Livingston are all 2-0 in the season and 2-0 in conference play. East Atchison and Stewartsville are 1-1 on the season and 1-1 in conference play. DeKalb, 1-1 on the season, 0-1 in conference play. South Holt, Nottoway Holt, Platte Valley, and Northwest Nottoway are all 0-2 on the season. South Holt, Nottoway Holt is 0-1 in conference play. Platte Valley and Northwest Nottoway both 0-2, but those 2 teams will play each other this week, so one of them will get a win. Kramer, as you said, you were in Northwest Nottoway, Burlington Junction, technically, on Friday night for that game, and just kind of a really explosive first half from East Atchison, it looked like.
It took them, I think, 3 plays to score a few touchdowns. They also got a safety as well. It just seems like they were just firing on all cylinders. They came into town and then they left.
Pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly, yes. It was a very good game to watch. Defense-wise for both teams, I know Northwest Nottoway, I know they put up 58 against them. They still, heading into like the final of the second quarter, their defense was still standing strong. Like they were still out there. They're still trying to perform their best and everything. Honestly, showed heart.
Yeah, and this is a Northwest Nottoway team that I think the scoreboard at times this year might not indicate how well they're going to play. Not the greatest turnout for them as far as kids they have out-wise. They battled the numbers game the last couple of years. Also, the 5th head coach in 5 years for them with Anthony Christian at the helm now, so maybe kind of getting used to it. I think it's a team we could see playing a little bit better by the end of the year, and it just kind of was unfortunate for them that they ran into an East Atchison team that was coming off of a very close loss to Southwest Livingston when there's a lot of people that believe this could be the year for East Atchison to make a run and win the conference. So I think it was just kind of a wrong place, wrong time thing for Northwest Nottoway, but they get the chance to bounce back this week against Platte Valley. Like we said, Rockport defeated Platte Valley. Platte Valley actually hung with Rockport for about the first half or so. I believe it was a 16-point game at halftime, and we've seen that with Rockport. It seems like they've played better in the second half than they have in the first half, but then again, they lost a lot from last year with their star quarterback Jace Hughes and Ryan Dewhurst, and I think we're still seeing some of those kids get more accustomed, and this is a team that I think is going to be really interesting down the road. And then Southwest Livingston, 2-0 on the year. We all thought Mound City would probably be 2-0, and they are. So this conference is still, I think it's probably a 4-cat race between Rockport, Mound City, Southwest Livingston. I'm not counting out East Atchison, but it's going to be really interesting, especially in a couple weeks when we get East Atchison and Rockport taking each other on in what they call the Atchison County Super Bowl. So it'll be really interesting for that one. A lot of big games this month in 8-man, not only in the 275, but the Grand River Conference as well, and also in 11-man with the Midland Empire Conference. We do have some coaches lined up for you today on This Week in High School Sports. Here in just a moment, we're going to hear from the head coach at East Atchison, Aaron Behrens. Then we'll go to the Grand River Conference and talk to Stanberry head coach Shane Hilton. And towards the end of the show, we will talk with the man in charge of the Maryville Spoof Hound program, head coach Matt Webb. So why don't we go ahead and play that interview with East Atchison head football coach Aaron Behrens earlier this week, as he was kind enough to join us on This Week in High School Sports.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports on X106. It's now time for our first Coach's Corner of the show, and for our first one, we go to the 275 conference and make the trek over to the Tarkio Fairfax area, where we talk with the head coach of the East Atchison Wolves, Coach Aaron Behrens. Coach, how's it going today?
Doing well.
Good. Just kind of talk about last Friday night. You guys come out against Northwest Nottoway, and you guys were really able to get things going early in a 58-0 halftime win. What are some of the takeaways from that game?
Boys did a good job bouncing back after we had a tough one the week before against Southwest Livingston. Northwest Nottoway is kind of in a position like we were in a couple of years ago. They're playing a lot of young guys, and so they're gonna take some lumps this year, and we were able to kind of get it going early. Bryson Bywater had a really good game on the ground for us, and we kind of got things back on track, hopefully going into next week.
You mentioned how it was important for you guys to bounce back to a loss. You go back to a couple weeks ago. You guys got in a shootout with Southwest Livingston and came up a little bit short. How important was it for you guys to be able to bounce back with an impressive win like that?
Very, very important. Talking to the boys all week, just kind of hitting reset after after the week before and making sure that one loss didn't affect 2 games. And they did a really good job responding. We had a really physical week of practice, let them beat on each other a little bit. So, get some frustrations out. And it really showed when we got to play on Friday.
You mentioned Bryson Bywater having a big game on Friday night, 9 rushes, 215 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Was that part of the game plan going in to feed him a lot, and were you surprised to see the performance he had Friday night?
Surprised? No. He's a guy going into every game. We know what we're going to get from him. He's a really hard runner. His vision's getting a lot better. He's made big strides in that. And he's just a guy that we know we can rely on. He doesn't miss a lot of snaps for us on offense. And so, he's a very good complement to our quarterback, Jake McEnany, who also had a solid game and can win games for us with his arm. But we want to run the ball first and foremost, and Bryson's a huge part of that.
You mentioned Jake McEnany, and you guys also kind of a 3-headed monster with Bywater and Gage Adams. Just kind of talk about, I'm sure as a coach, maybe it makes your job a little bit easier when you have those guys with the veteran leadership and the experience that they have.
Absolutely. They've played a lot of football between Jake Gage, Garrett Meyer. Those kids have, like I said, they took one freshman sophomore being out there on varsity. And, it really shows they're comfortable. All of them have bought in. Garrett Meyer's another senior. He really paid a price in the weight room this summer, and he's come out and he's really improved and been a rock for us on offense and defense. Just it's fun having those guys because they know us, they know our scheme, they know what we're trying to do, and they can come off the field and tell us what they're seeing and kind of help us through the game too. So it's good having those guys.
Anytime you have a running back that puts up the numbers like Bryson Bywater did on Friday night, that normally means that there was a really good offensive line play paving the way. Who were some of those guys on the front line that were paving the way for Bryson on Friday night?
Absolutely. And, they don't always get the credit they deserve. Ian Headland, who had played running back for us last year, he's too big to be in the backfield anymore. So he's at left guard. And then, Wyatt Gray is a senior for us, as one of our captains and leaders. He's at right guard. And then, Ashton Urey and Keaton Williams both play center, and all 4 of them kind of rotate around, and they did a real solid job for us.
You guys looking ahead to this week, you have South Holt, Nottoway Holtz. They're 0-2 on the season, but they've played a really good Worth County team. We're able to hang with them for a while, and then I don't have to tell you how good Southwest Livingston is, given you guys saw them in week 1. Just kind of what are you expecting from South Holt, Nottoway Holt coming into this week?
Coach Peterson will have them ready to play. They're 0-2, but just watching film today with the boys, just kind of letting them know, hey, that's just a number because they're going to come in. They're physical. They'll run. They'll hit you. They like to spread the ball around a little bit. Their quarterback's solid. They have 2 really good receivers and a really good running back. So they're going to be. It's a tough test, and they've taken their lumps, but Worth County might win state again, and then going over to Southwest Livingston and playing obviously is not very easy. But I got a lot of respect for Coach Peterson and what they do up there, so he'll definitely have them ready to go.
I talked to Rockport head coach Ross Haskard last week, and he said he felt like the 275 conference this year, top to bottom, might be as good as it's been in a long time. Is that kind of the assessment around the entire conference this year from the coaches?
Absolutely. Teams, that struggled last year, like Platte Valley and DeKalb, they have taken big strides and gotten quite a bit better, and I feel like the middle of our conference is getting closer to the top, and so it's kind of it's gonna be fun. It's a lot more competitive at the top with Mount St. Rockport, Livingston, South Old Nottoway Hold us. I mean, I feel like any of those teams can beat each other any given week, and so watching scores every week should be kind of fun as we get through the season.
Kind of an interesting month of September for you guys. You get South Holt, Nottoway Holt, and DeKalb to start the month, and then at the end of the month you get 2 big ones with Rockport and Mound City. The consensus coming this year was that it was probably going to be you guys, Rockport and Mound City, contending for the 275 title. Now, how important is it to not overlook these next 2 matchups going into those final 2 matchups in the month?
Well, it's kind of something we've talked about with the boys, and until we earn something, we can't really take anyone for granted. We haven't gotten to the point where we've hung any sort of conference or anything banner, and so it's not hard keeping our boys focused on the task at hand. If we were going to have kind of a letdown last week, that probably would have been it, and they came out focused and ready to go, and which was encouraging for me. And our focus right now is South Holt, Nottoway Holt, getting through that game, hopefully coming out with a win, and then we'll progress this season.
Talking to East Atchison head coach South Holt, Nottoway Holt, this is Wolves. Or head coach, East Atchison head coach Aaron Behrens, if he will take on South Holt, Nottoway Holt this weekend. Coach, thank you for your time. Best of luck Friday night, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
I appreciate it, Trevor. Thanks.
All right, that's East Atchison head coach Aaron Behrens here on This Week in High School Sports. We're going to take a real quick break. You're listening to KZLX 106 LP Maryville.
Welcome back to This Week in High School Sports. Trevor Mader, Kramer Sansone with you, recapping all the action from the 275 Conference, Grand River Conference, and Midland Empire Conference. We just heard from East Atchison head coach Aaron Behrens. Here in a little bit, we will hear from Stanberry head coach Shane Hilton. But let's go ahead and take a look at the scores from the Grand River Conference on Friday night. Worth County, they went across the state lines to Bedford, Iowa, and they took it to the Bulldogs 70-12, as they are the defending state champions, are now 2-0 on the season. King City, they kept up their dominant performances so far this season with a 86-22 win over Northwest Hughesville. Stanberry defeated Albany 58-20. Big night from Trey Schieber. He had 202 yards and 4 touchdowns on just 11 carries. North Andrew defeated St. Joe Christian 36-6. Jaden Baker had 100 yards and a score. Ryan Wilms found the end zone twice and racked up 50 yards on the ground. And the Cardinals are now 1-1. Pattonsburg is 2-0 in the season after a 58-12 win over Bramer. So Worth County, King City, Stanberry, North Andrew, and Pattonsburg all pick up wins, and all of them except North Andrew are now 2-0 on the season. And there's some really, really good teams in the top of the GRC this year, Kramer.
It's like they're all well put together, it seems like, and they know when to basically turn it on in order to win these games. I mean, of course, these games are high scoring, but it just seems like the teams that we expect to win are winning. And, I mean, the teams that we didn't know they could pretty much be like this are doing this right now.
Yeah, and I think you can always expect Stanberry and North Andrew. Those are the powerhouses of Missouri 8-man football. They have been for a long time. Worth County in the past couple of years has really came along, and then King City's been an interesting one. They made North Andrew look pretty silly a couple weeks ago.
And that's one of the teams that I was very surprised about being 2-0 right now. They beat North Andrew. It's like this could be one of those one teams that could just pretty much just have that trigger, like let him go, and they keep on winning the rest of the season.
And they've got a big one with Stanberry this weekend. A lot of people think Stanberry is the team to beat in 8-man this year with the duo of Cole Durbin and Trey Schieber in the backfield for the Bulldogs, an experienced team. Interesting kind of battle there is Stanberry tends to ground it out a lot more. They've aired the ball out a little bit more than they have in years past. And then King City, they're not afraid to fling it and sling it. We'll see what the weather looks like on Friday. Right now, looking at it, playing conditions might not be the greatest, so that could potentially favor a team like Stanberry that wants to ground it and pound it a little bit more.
And if even with the slight chance of it not raining, we can honestly expect King City to try to get that throwing game quickly before it does start raining for that night, because I know it's going to be raining all week.
Yeah.
But still, the ball gets wet, you can't throw it.
Yeah, and it depends what the field looks like, too. And then Pattonsburg's been a quiet 2-0 with wins over St. Joe Christian and Bramer, respectively, as they picked up the win. They are one of the 4 teams that are undefeated. A quick look at the Grand River Conference standings. Worth County is 2-0, but they have yet to play a conference game, as their 2 wins came over South Holt and Nottoway Holt, who's in the 275 Conference, and Bedford, who is in Iowa, so obviously they're not in the GRC. Stanberry is 2-0 on the season with wins over Bramer and also the win last week over Albany. Actually, they're 1-0 in conference. No, they're 2-0 in conference play, excuse me. King City 2-0 overall, 1-0 in conference play with that win over North Andrew. Pattonsburg 2-0 overall, 2-0 in conference play. North Andrew is 1-1 overall and also 1-1 in conference play. Albany 1-1 overall. They lost this past weekend to Stanberry in their first conference game. St. Joe Christian and Bramer are both 0-2 on the season, with both losses coming in conference play. St. Joe Christian does have a bye coming up this week, so I never had the chance to experience a bye in Iowa high school football because we don't have those. But you got to think, for a team like St. Joe Christian, early in the season, an 0-2 start, a bye might actually be a really good thing for them, and maybe they can come back with some momentum and work on some things through the bye week.
This might be a jump start for St. Joe Christian. And coming into a bye, you need to practice hard. Then you can have that relaxing day on Friday to like look back, maybe
or
possibly
a chance
watch
to scout the next opponent.
Exactly. As coming up in their schedule, I mean, they have to win some of these conference games in order to, give them credible chance of this conference.
Yeah, when you look at the top of this conference, Worth County, Stanberry, King City, I think that's probably the top three. Don't count out Pattonsburg yet right now, as they're 2-0 overall. King City had the tough draw this year. They got Stanberry, Worth County, and North Andrew all on the road. They showed a couple weeks ago they could go out and beat North Andrew at their own place. They're going to see if they can do it against Stanberry on Friday night, and that is one I am super excited for.
As am I, as I should say.
English is hard for us
English
today.
is very hard for us. Also, I'm ready to see Worth County play some conference games and see how legitimate they are in their division.
Yeah, and this is an interesting Worth County team because last year they had kind of a duo of Tevin Cameron and Ryan McClellan, and they had some hosses on the offensive line. Well, those guys are all gone. Kind of a younger team, but Caleb Parman's been playing really well for them. He's had 2 100-yard games. They've been able to force some turnovers, and they held a Bedford team that I think is going to score a lot of points in Iowa to just 12 points, and all those points were in the first half. They scored, I believe, 40 unanswered on the Bulldogs, so good win for the Tigers on Friday night. They will begin conference play this Friday with a matchup against 0-2 Bramer. We'll look more ahead to the GRC later on in this show, but I think it is time for another Coach's Corner as we are going to head to Stanberry and catch up with the head coach of the Bulldogs, who are 2-0 on the season right now, and many people have ranked as the top team in Class 8-man. So let's hear from Stanberry head coach Shane Hilton on This Week in High School Sports.
Welcome back to This Week in High School Sports on X106. It's now time for another Coach's Corner. And for this one, we're going to go to the Grand River Conference and Stanberry, where we're on the phone with their head football coach, Shane Hilton. Coach, how are you today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just kind of talk about these first 2 games for you guys. You go out against Bramer and Albany both, and you pick up 2 really impressive wins. What are some of your takeaways from the first 2 games?
Obviously we're just trying to kind of get everybody in the right spot, and figure out what we want to do. Offensively, we've been hitting on all cylinders pretty well. When we should. We have most of our returners, back from last year on that side of the ball. Defensively, I think we're getting there. We've got a lot of new bodies and kind of moving them around, and it's been nice to have a couple of games where, especially Albany, they moved the ball against us, and we were able to get a chance to try some different things and see what works.
Is there any one particular thing that you guys are trying to improve on, not only this week, but going forward the rest of the season?
The focus this week, and it hasn't worked out real well with the weather, has been special teams. Ours have not been very impressive the first couple of weeks. And we just haven't spent enough time on them. That's on us as a coaching staff to refocus on that, and so we can improve on that as the year goes on.
You mentioned that you returned a pretty experienced team, and when you talk to Stanberry and the experience they returned, most people are going to think of Cole Durbin and Trey Schieber. Have you liked what you've seen from those guys here in the first couple games?
Yeah, for sure. Cole's kind of different role for him so far this year, not even by plan necessarily, but he's done most of his damage through the air. And, of course, Trey, running the ball for his 4th year that he's in a row starting, you know what you're getting with him. And, a couple other guys with Ruben Gage running the ball, stepping up, it's been a good start.
Anytime you guys can have the production kind of through the air and on the ground that you've had, that normally means your offensive line is playing really well. Who's been some of those offensive linemen up front that have been paving the way for the offensive power the first couple of weeks?
We've got a center, Grady Matson, and it's his first year as a true starter. He's got several reps the last few years. And then Zach Oldham is our left guard, and he started for about a year and a half via injuries. And then we've got a freshman at the other guard, Austin Colvin, and probably the biggest one of the bunch, and those 3 work really well together, and the older guys taking care of the young guys. So it's been nice for us, and really in our offense, it stretches out to the tight ends. because with what we do, they do a lot of blocking, and we've got Colin Sager and Hunter Johnson and Cameron Wallace and Brian Medina. We've got a 4-man rotation at tight end, and they've done an excellent job as well.
I don't have to tell you how tough the GRC is. You already know that. And you look at you guys in Worth County, North Andrew have had a lot of success over the past couple of years. King City is off to a hot start. Just kind of how do you project this conference going forward this year?
Oh, it's tough. Tough as always. Since it kind of got together a few years ago, you take a look around and with, a few teams here and there around the other 8-man football especially, most of them are centered in the GRC, and that's great because, nobody wants to play games where it's, 50-0 and there's not much competition. So, you make it through the GRC season and, get into the playoffs and you're ready to roll.
You guys have had some lofty expectations from a lot of people coming into this season, which isn't necessarily something that Stanberry isn't used to. You guys are pretty used to that. How do you keep your team grounded year in and year out with the expectations to contend, not only for a conference title, but for a state title?
It's pretty easy. They pretty well take care of that themselves. When you've got kids that have played on those teams, and some of them multiple teams, they're not going to let those younger guys take for granted, how they got here. And they're going to, continue to work as hard as they can, and push each other, with that one end goal in sight, and some people might think it's, maybe arrogant or whatever you want to say, but, the message we have around here is end of the season on a win, and, there's only one way to do that.
Yeah, and that's to win a state title. You guys have a big game coming up this weekend against the King City team that's got off to a really hot start. They're 2-0 with an impressive win over North Andrew in week 1. What have you seen from this King City team, and what are you expecting from them on Friday night?
Well, I'm expecting them to throw the ball a whole bunch. They've got good receivers, lots of speed, and they wing it around quite a bit. Colin Breckenridge, a quarterback, he's solid, he's polished. He'll run the ball and hurt you there if he needs to, or if he wants to, but he'll stay in the pocket as long as he can, and we're gonna have our hands full running around covering their speed, for 4 quarters.
You mentioned that they like to sling the ball a lot, but they can also go to it on the ground. Looking at the weather for Friday night, looks like as it's been most of the week, there's a good chance to rain. Do you think maybe weather could play a factor in the game for both sides?
I think it will, and the way it stands right now, we're not going to get dry by Friday because I think it's going to keep raining and it's going to be pretty sloppy, which isn't ideal no matter what. It doesn't really benefit a team. Everyone always says that'll benefit the running teams, but excuse me, I think it really doesn't benefit anybody. It's just, it makes it more risky for injury. It makes it, just a sloppy type of ball game, and unfortunately, we can't do anything about that.
Talking to Stanberry head football coach Shane Hilton, the Bulldogs are off to a 2-0 start on the season, and they will take on King City on Friday night in Stanberry, another team that is off to a 2-0 start. Coach, thank you for your time today, and best of luck to you Friday night and the rest of the season, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that is Shane Hilton, head coach of the Stanberry Bulldogs. We're going to take a real quick break on This Week in High School Sports. You're listening to X106.
Welcome back to This Week in High School Sports. I'm Kramer Sandstone alongside Trevor Mater. Let's get into the Midland Empire Conference scores that has happened, as there was a lot of action as well. No conference games as of yet. But to start us off, Maryville defeated Harrisonville 36-0. Tyler Houchin had 100 yards rushing, a score, and an interception on defense. The Spoofhound defense held Harrisonville to just 138 total yards. That is not so much a lot of yards for a team for only 138.
Yeah, pretty good night for them defensively. Definitely after you go back to the week before, they gave up 38 points to Blair Oaks. They're able to cramp down. I believe it was 62 yards passing and 76 yards rushing that they gave up. And they jumped out to a 16-0 lead early in the first quarter and had a 36-0 lead at the end of the third quarter, and were just kind of able to coast. I know Coach Webb was incredibly happy with the way his team played. He felt the offensive line played a lot better. We're going to hear from him a little bit later on in the show, but a good win for the Spoofhounds. I believe that's 53 wins in a row at the Hound Pound. And
they don't lose at the Hound Pound. Yeah. They don't.
And I was going to say they will get a play there again this Friday. However, that game, due to the weather that's kind of swept through Maryville this week and all of Northwest Missouri, that game has been moved to Bearcat Stadium as they will take on Chillicothe to begin conference play. You can hear that game On X106, it'll be Wyatt Bell and Colton Emsweiler on the call. And as a reminder, we'd like to thank Nottoway Valley Bank, the official sponsor of Maryville Spoofhound Football and X106. For more information, visit online at nvbank.com. Kramer, let's roll through the rest of those MEC scores.
All right, so Excelsior Springs beat Benton 35-0. East Buchanan defeated Bishop LeBlanc 46-12. Cameron got another win as they beat Kansas City East 24-8. Kirksville defeated Chillicothe 41-0. Lafayette defeated Central 20-13. Pleasant Hill defeated Savannah 39-25. St. Pius took over St. Michael is it St. Michel?
St. Michael the Archangel. That's
a
tough one to say.
St. Michael the Archangel 36-25. Once again, St. Pius winning that game.
Yeah, kind of just real quick here. The week before, only 2 teams picked up wins in the MEC, and that was Lafayette and Cameron. On Friday night, they went 4-4. Those 2 teams went to 2-0 in the season. I wouldn't say I'm surprised to see those teams at 2-0, but I'm not sure they would have been the 2 that I would have expected if you told me that 2 of them would be 2-0. Maryville also picking up a win, as did St. Pius the 10th.
So I'm just very surprised that Cameron is 2-0 in the season.
Yeah,
and I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, and that's awesome for the Dragons, who had not won a game in 3 years. Now they've won 2 games in a row. We'll see if that can parlay into some luck. I wouldn't even say luck, some success in conference play, as they will host St. Pius X this weekend. Conference play is not yet started, but let's take a look at those overall standings so far, Kramer, in the Midland Empire Conference.
So the overall standings right now, Cameron's in first place at 2-0. Lafayette's right behind them as well as 2-0. The only 2 teams in that conference that have not lost a game yet. We'll see at the end of this week. End of tonight. Maryville is 1-1, and they are third. St. Pius 10th is 1-1, and they're fourth. Fifth is Benton. They're 0-2. Savannah's 0-2 as well behind them. Then goes Bishop LeBlanc as well as they are 0-2. Then Chillicothe is 0-2 as well. So there's a lot of teams in the conference of the MEC that still have not had that chance to win, but that can always switch when conference play goes on.
Yeah, and they'll start conference play this week. It's as most conferences are, it's a round-robin style. Everybody plays everybody. We'll look at the schedule here in just a little bit. I want to go back to this Chillicothe-Maryville matchup. It's Coach Webb said it himself. A little bit of a rivalry. He kind of dated it back to even when he was in high school, that it seemed like it always means something. And this is a Chillicothe team that's taken a couple of bumps early on the season. They lost last week to a pretty good Kirksville team by a score of 41-0. But you got to remember, they beat Maryville last year in Chillicothe, so they know what it takes to beat the Spoofhounds. Now, even Coach Webb would tell you this is a different Spoofhound team than last year. But even then, that was a team that went on to win a state championship. So interesting matchup, and I think the fact that it's going to be played at Bearcat Stadium makes it kind of cool too.
Exactly. How cool is it, a rivalry game being played at Bearcat Stadium for pretty much – it's a good thing. I mean, I know they want to play at home at the Hound Pound, but being able to play at Bearcat Stadium, there's a different level, and I feel like they're just going to come in and pretty much wreck shop, I guess. I don't know.
And you got to think too, if you're a Spoofhound, having grown up probably watching Northwest Missouri State and going to Bearcat games and maybe even dreaming of one day playing for the Bearcats, how cool was it to get to play a college game on that, or a high school game on a college field? I mean, to me, that's pretty awesome. So obviously it wasn't the way it was planned. The game originally intended to be played at the Hound Pound, but with the weather that's kind of rolled through this week, and it just sounds like the playing conditions were not favorable. And props to everyone at Northwest Missouri State, as well as Maryville and Athletic Director Matt Bew, for having a backup plan, and a really good one at that.
As you mentioned it, like having that dream to be able to play in a college stadium, I would say. And you're probably going to see someone step up that you haven't seen them step up recently. I think we're
going to see that Maryville a lot this year.
Exactly. It's just there's so much talent on this team, and it's just all around.
Yeah, so you'll definitely want to keep an eye on that one. Is by the time you listen to this, we're approaching kickoff, about 30, 45 minutes away. Wyatt Bell and Colton Emsweiler will have the call for you from Bearcat Stadium as Chillicothe is in town to take on the Spoofhounds. Spoofhound head coach Matt Webb was kind enough to join us on This Week in High School Sports, and why don't we go ahead and hear from the old ball coach at Maryville, as this is Maryville head coach Matt Webb on This Week in High School Sports.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports on X106. We are now joined by the head football coach of the Maryville Spoof Hounds, Matt Webb. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Just kind of talk about Friday night. I know the goal is always to go 1-0 each week, and last Friday night you guys go out against a good Harrisonville team, and you're able to go 1-0 this week. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously, one of those games where it's our home opener, so there's a lot of excitement this time of year. That's always, a unique experience to have a home opener, and fans were, amazing as always, and what we call the Hound Pound. We were able to extend our home winning streak to 54 straight football games, and that's something we're very proud of, our home stadium. Harrisonville came in, and there's a lot of newness to that because of they're not an opponent we've faced in a long time, and to add to that, Maryville had never beaten Harrisonville through the years. I mean, they've both two very historic and successful football programs, and Maryville's never been able to beat them. So our kids are very motivated and excited to play, and came out and showed the other night with a convincing victory.
What were some of the things that you liked from your team on Friday night?
Well, I like the way, our goals going into last week were basically, number one, we wanted to execute better, and we wanted to apply the things that we talk about during the week in practice and in our schemes. We wanted to see a better execution. That was our first goal, and I think we did that, both offense, defense, and special teams. We blocked better. We tackled better. We did the things that we talk about the process, what it takes to win games, whether that's field position or kicking game or two-point conversions. There's a lot of fundamentals that go into all that, and that was our first goal. The second goal is we wanted to play harder. We wanted to play with more effort and make it show on the field, and we did that in all three phases. I think I saw some guys blocking downfield better last week on offense, getting those extra blocks to kind of spring some long runs. On defense, I think we all ran to the football better, tackled better, those individual things. We played harder. And third, we wanted to operate as a program better. We wanted to have better substitution. We wanted to have better communication. All those things that, we think we can operate better. So I think we're accomplished all three of our goals.
5 rushing touchdowns on Friday night, 2 from Eli Dallas, 2 from Tyler Houston, and 1 from Connor White. Just kind of talk about how the ground attack was working on Friday night.
Well, I think it was something that, all three of those guys that scored touchdowns there, that's the first ones that would give credit to the offensive line up front. We've, in years past in our program, and part of that, those words and buzzwords we talk about, tradition never graduates, is we're very proud of our offensive line play and what they produce up front and how they open up holes and block our schemes, and that was very evident the other night. I think it starts up front, but all three of those guys are very talented. If you give them the crease, they can take it to the end zone and lead our team in rushing.
Defense pitched a shutout, allowed less than 140 yards of offense 1 week after a shootout with Blair Oaks. I'm guessing you really like the way your defense progressed this week?
Yeah, I think, again, I touched on it earlier. We operated better. We executed better. We were able to get off the field on third down a couple times and create them, get them in situations where it was third and long instead of third and 1 or 2, where you can kind of hold the cards. And getting our kids to understand that is how we've been able to have successful defenses in the past. And defensive football is kind of something that, has been my side of football that I've worked on for over 22 years. And I promise that there's not a lot of secrets to it. When you watch a football game from the stands, you can see a lot of creative defenses and a lot of exotic blitzes and different things. But, we think it comes down to 3 simple things. Number one, you got to play great technique. You got to line up with horizontal leverage. You got to be able to cover the formations and tempos that you're seeing in today's, football games, whether that's an option look or whether that's a spread look, which we've seen 2 now in 2 different proponents. And the second thing is you've got to tackle really well individually. You got to be great individual tacklers. And you got to work on the technique behind tackling safely. There's a common buzzword today that football is dangerous and things like that. And we don't believe it. I think the good programs teach tackling safely. And then the game of football has never been in safer hands because of what's going on out there and the miscommunication that's being said. But finally, you got to be able to swarm to the football and create takeaways, and we were able to do that the other night. Swarm means 100% effort, everybody running to the football and corralling it with leverage and then stripping the ball and getting the ball when it's in the air. So good creative takeaways for your offense.
Looking ahead to this week, you guys will host Chillicothe beginning conference play. Just kind of what are you guys expecting from them, and are you going to, I'm guessing you're wanting to see the same effort from your team this Friday night?
Well, yeah, I don't think we talk about same efforts. I think what we talk about when you play a team like Chillicothe is it really doesn't matter what the records are. You know, Chillicothe is 0-2 right now, we're 1-1, and if you look at it from a media standpoint, you think, oh, Maryville ought to win. You know, Chillicothe hasn't, really gotten their new offense that they're installing this year up and going. It's a flex bone option type. If you want to compare it to a college level, you would look at Navy or Georgia Tech style of option, which is very difficult to defend. And then at the same time, it takes a lot of rhythm and timing. I still think they've had time and efforts with the new coaching staff to install that timing and precision that they'll eventually get to. But when you think of Maryville and Chillicothe, you throw the records out the rivalry football game. There's a lot of storied moments. I remember when I was in high school here, 25 years ago, that there are games in throughout there that one program may be up, one program may be down, but you circle this game on your calendar every year because it's Maryville Chillicothe, and our kids play against each other in summer baseball, basketball leagues, conference races, and all those things. It's two very similar communities that take a lot of pride in their football programs and how they win. And last year obviously they beat us in the regular season week 3 and basically stopped our consecutive win streak in the regular season, and then we were able to get them to the playoffs for our district championship and go on to win state. But you throw those ball games away, and it's a new year and a new team. It's a rival game.
Talking to Maryville head football coach Matt Webb as the Spoof Hounds will face Chillicothe in Maryville on Friday night on a game you can hear on X106. Coach, thank you for your time today, and best of luck to you Friday night. We'll talk to you again down the road.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, that is Matt Webb. We're going to take a real quick break here on This Week in High School Sports on X106.
Welcome back into This Week in High School Sports. Trevor Mater, Kramer Sansone here with you as we are close to game time all across Northwest Missouri. Make sure to stick around on X106 so you can catch the Chillicothe-Maryville Spoofhound game that is slated to begin at 7 o'clock. This game being played at Bearcat Stadium. Wyatt Bell and Colton Emsweiler on the call as you can catch that game. A reminder, all Maryville Spoofhound broadcasts on X106 are brought to you by Nottoway Valley Bank. For more information, visit online at nvbank.com. Why don't we go ahead and look through the schedule that's going to be rolling out here tonight across Northwest Missouri. Start with the 275 Conference. Southwest Livingston will travel to DeKalb. Stewartsville will travel to Rockport. Platte Valley will travel to Northwest Nottoway, both teams looking for their first win of the season. East Atchison will take on South Holt, Nottoway Holt, and in a battle of GRC versus 275, Albany and Mound City. That could be an interesting one as that game will be played in Mound City. So DeKalb, Rockport, Northwest Nottoway, and South Holt, Nottoway Holt, as well as Mound City, the places to be tonight in the 275 Conference. Kramer, why don't we look at the Grand River Conference this week?
So in the Grand River Conference, they have King City at Stanberry, Bramer at Worth County, and North Andrew at Plattsburgh. And yes, that's the GRC coming for tonight, and see how who wins, who doesn't win on that. Let's look into the MEC for this week. Chillicothe is at Maryville. Once again, that is being played here in about 15 minutes, maybe kickoff time.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. St. Pius X is at Cameron. Benton is at Lafayette, and Savannah is at Bishop LeBlond for tonight.
Which of these games, whether it's 275, GRC, MEC, which one are you the most excited for? I have a feeling I know which way you're going to go, being a St. Joe boy.
I'm going with the Benton-Lafayette game. I'm a Lafayette grad, so it's always nice to have that rivalry with Benton, and they keep the rivalry alive, because I know we swept them a lot when I was in college. Not college, in high school. So it's always nice to see Lafayette beat Benton.
I'm going to go with King City Stanberry. Two teams that are getting a lot of love so far right now. They're ranked up there in the top 5, both of them. King City kind of maybe taking some people by surprise. They looked pretty good against North Andrew a couple weeks ago. Stanberry not taking anybody by surprise. Kind of a contrast of styles. Stanberry likes to ground and pound it. King City likes to sling it and fling it. So that'll be an interesting one, and we'll see if the weather plays a factor in this. Real quick, before we let you go, we'll take a look at the rankings from Straight Up Sports, the fine folks there putting together an 8-man ranking every single week. Not much change from last week to this week. Top 7 remained the same. Actually, the top 9 remained the same. Stanberry 1, Worth County 2, King City 3, Mound City 4, Pattonsburg 5, Southwest Livingston 6, Rockport 7, North Andrew 8, East Atchison 9. The only new face in the top 10 are the Oric Bearcats as they crack the top 10 this week. Just not a lot of changes in the polls so far through 2 weeks. So, Kramer, any final thoughts before we get things ready to go? I know you're headed to Rockport tonight to take in some action there. You've been there once and you've seen that team. So, what do you think you're going to see tonight?
I actually want to see a really good game going back and forth. Hope it's a nail biter because I haven't experienced one of those as of yet on this 8-man scene, and I know those games get exciting and they get hectic.
So Kramer will be in Rockport for Stewartsville at Rockport. We'll make sure to catch up with him next week on his recap of that game. But that'll do it for this week in high school sports on X106. We are just a handful of minutes away from kickoff between Chillicothe and Maryville. So soon we will be sending it to Bearcat Stadium with Wyatt Bell and Colton Emsweiler on the call. Huge thanks to our guests today, East Atchison head coach Aaron Barron, Stanberry head coach Shane Hilton, and Maryville head coach Matt Webb for being kind to join us. We'll make sure to have some more coaches lined up for you next week on This Week in High School Sports. Until then, you're listening to This Week in High School Sports on X106.